This is my final project presentation. Initial ideas. When originally coming up with my ideas, I wanted to recreate a building. However, the abandonment theme was a hard one to work with. So my initial idea was to create King's John Palace, which is a building in Southampton, and the large theatre at Pompeii. King's John Palace was a merchant building in Southampton built in the 1100s, so it had its roof removed in the early 20th century. I decided not to use that idea because I didn't really think it would fit the theme, as it wasn't that abandoned. My second idea, I had the idea of recreating a large theatre at Pompeii. This theatre was built somewhere in the 2nd century BC in the Greek style, which were built into hills and was used for plays. There was another one nearby, which was a roofed theatre called the Alien, and was used for poetry and other works like that. The Grand Theatre was damaged in a 62 AD earthquake at Pompeii, which damaged the town, and then in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius was erupted, which caused the town to be abandoned, and led to at least 2,000 civilians dead. Target audience for this would be for museum guests and people interested in history and its purpose, and its purpose would be shown an ancient version and a reconstructed version in order for people to see a difference between the two. My aims were to recreate the Roman theatre as it would have been a bit before it was abandoned in 79 AD. My initial idea and move forward. For planning purposes, I made a Gantt chart to help keep track of where I'd be at certain times during the production process. In my initial research, I looked at paintings at what the theatre looked like. I looked at Google Maps to see what it looked like currently, and I looked at various dimension plans to try and be as accurate as possible. I decided to make my columns first. I ran into problems with the type of columns that the theatre was using. I couldn't find what type of columns they used in the original. So for one of the painting concepts, it looked like Doric columns, so I decided to use those. I've used this imagery tool a lot as the building was symmetrical, so I could just clone parts and move them out. Textures, I chose a red brick texture. I was questioning on this texture originally, but I did some research on other Roman theatres on the coast, and a lot of them had red brick designs. I did choose a marble texture in my columns, but in retrospect I would have changed it to be a similar material to the rest of the structure. For the stage, none of the stage actually remained, so I used a wooden texture, because you could probably infer that it would have been wood or another organic material, as none of it remained or was preserved. Most of the problems I had during this project were doing the rendering part. Initially I'd forgotten to change the settings on the textures, so the renders came out shiny, the before and after down there. Writing problems. I also had issues with initial writing as it came out way too bright, so I turned down the exposure and brightness settings until it came out right. But that led to problems with noise, so I had to turn the preview off and adjust the camera settings, and then I initially put it up to 10, but that increased the render time too much, so I had to decrease it down to 8, which was the worst I could get without it causing while focusing the noise. It didn't come up. Why isn't it playing? It comes up with Overall, I feel my project went reasonably well. I stuck to my timetable for the majority of the time. The writing and modelling, I've done all alright. My writing and modelling of the seating areas are all in my plan, but I still had time to finish my project. Some parts of the model are missing compared to the originals. I missed the inclusion of the staircases in the cavity of in the seating area of the structure. So I would have included that if I had more time on that. And I also would have done some more research into it to make sure I didn't miss it if I did it again.
Finished?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So you obviously haven't got any sound on there. Was it your intention initially to have sound, or was it always going to be a piece without sound?
It wasn't going to have sound.
It wasn't, okay. And what was the purpose of this?
It was to show before and after.
So whereabouts in the kind of like a real world, what scenario, where do you see your piece fitting?
In a museum.
Okay. Do you think you have succeeded in creating a realistic look of what it would have looked like to give a good idea?
I feel like I have, yeah.
And it's technically accurate?
As far as I researched, yeah.
Okay. How did you make sure it was accurate when you were modelling it?
I looked at what it currently looks like and used mixtures of what it currently looks like, and I used brands of it.
Did you use any reference material to model from actually in Max, or did you do it just by eye with the different things?
I did use some reference material to model it in Max as well, yeah.
Okay.
And used dimensions from the plans.
Okay. Who do you think your target audience would be for this then?
People who write history in Pompeii and who would want to visit it in a museum.
Okay. So what sort of age group do you think they would be?
Just teenagers to adults.
So anyone that's kind of on holiday there that might go and... Okay, alright then. Anybody else got any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
You decided to do a historical project, as you said. It's supposed to be on a museum piece. I'm just curious, because you were trying to make it like realistic to the time period. Was there any like secondary research you did to try and like really confirm that this project would work? Like the textures you used, you said you used brick textures, and you did some research. Did you do any further research in that regard?
I looked at if I couldn't find information from that particular page, I looked at other theatres from the time period.
So you you did a lot of research into other theatres of the time period.
Yeah, I looked into other theatres alongside the coast.
Okay, and at what point when you were looking at them did you while researching a lot of this, was there like a moment where you were like, this really helps confirm I want to do this project?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.